Under the wrong circumstances, success can be a curse. I'll let you know if and when I get there, but over the course of many decades of people making video games of wildly fluctuating quality, it's only natural that some of those creators aren't so keen on what they've put out into the world. It sounds a bit crazy, I know. If you're creating something that brings joy to so many, at what point do you look at it and think, wow, what was I doing? Imposter syndrome is a thing, and a real problem among those who develop passionate followings off the back of their creations, because there's a prevailing fear that people will find out that you're a fraud. Trust me, I've got over 350,000 subscribers on this website and I have no idea why. How does anyone deserve anything when success is often dictated by being in the right place at the right time? Well, I'm gonna talk about some creators who hate their video games and save the crisis of confidence for another day. I'm sure it'll come back at some point, give it time. I always like my success with a degree of dignity and subtlety, kind of a quietly successful than outwardly showing the world, you know, that latter one kind of grates on a creator after a while. So, you might be in the market for a quiet, subtle, dignified pair of earbuds, much like the ones today's sponsors Raycon make. You know, I've had these in since the start, but you didn't know. I've been quietly, subtly stylish this whole time. If you really want to be subtly stylish within the safety of your own home, because that's where you should be right now, then you can't go wrong with Raycon and their exclusive brand of high quality premium earbuds. I've been working with Raycon for oodles of time now, and I've never looked elsewhere for earbuds since their offerings are so reasonably priced, with crystal clear sound quality to match their compact and stylish design. Also, I don't have to untangle headphone wires, so I have loads more time in my day to spend with my son. They fit very nicely in my pockets, and with celebrity endorsements like Snoop Dogg and Cardi B, people are going to know just from looking at your headphones that you're a groovy cool guy who puts his crappy dancing on YouTube for everyone to see. They start at half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, but sound just as good, if not better, than other competitors. Their newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are their best ones yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing and a more compact design, and is available with 15% off right now if you use my fancy link. Go to buyraycon.com/rabbid to get 15% off your next order and to get some well-priced earbuds at a very tasty discount. Alrighty then, let's talk about some angry video game people. Ordering this video might be harder than you think. I haven't worked it out yet because it's a little tricky to quantify a creator's hatred of their own work, but maybe the best way to go about things is to rank them based on how justified the reaction was? I'm not saying that a creator isn't allowed to hate their game, but sometimes it makes a bit of sense as a clear low point in their career, while other times it clearly doesn't. Starting us off in the marginally more understandable camp is Shigeru Miyamoto, and his hilariously large gameography that started in the late 1970s with Sheriff and Radar Scope, and has spanned more than 4 glorious decades that has brought us some of the best and most influential video games of all time. It's the kind of career that a games developer could only dream of, and surely there's nothing in here that Miyamoto feels any embarrassment over, right? Well, not really, because he did state that he wasn't such a big fan of how Zelda 2 came together, so I guess we'll talk about that. The Japanese are generally too polite to hate anything, considering that Shigeru Miyamoto was part of a small dev team, and to hate Zelda 2 would be to undermine some of the work of his colleagues. You know, he's not exactly going to outwardly say that. However, he's been on the record many times saying that he isn't such a fan of Zelda 2. So that makes at least 2 of us. The difference being that genius game developer Shigeru Miyamoto views Zelda 2 as unfulfilled potential, whereas hack YouTuber RabbidLuigi just wants to burn it all down and leave it to smolder. Miyamoto's dislike of Zelda 2 primarily stems from not having as many creative ideas for the game, stating that his team simply made the game they envisioned at the start of development without too many additions or alterations along the way, and whether that speaks more of creative burnout or being able to further develop Zelda 2's uniquely new style of gameplay is hard to pin down, but in interviews Miyamoto has talked about wanting faster transitions between the side-scrolling and the top-down perspective used for travelling around the map, and had some idea of some kind of fluid interchange between the two, so it's anyone's guess really. None of this has anything to do with Zelda 2's infamous difficulty, which means that Shiggy and his team looked back on Death Mountain and all its diaries after finishing development and thought there wasn't anything wrong with it. This hack YouTuber knows better. How in the sweet hell do you make a sequel to one of the best video games of all time? No idea. I wouldn't be here making YouTube videos if I had those kinds of answers. But from what I've picked up from my pipette-sized knowledge of video games is that you can't try to outdo the first game. You're more than welcome to give it a go if you're feeling stupid, but a developer's time would be better spent attempting to make more of a side grade than a straight upgrade. My favourite example is Majora's Mask After Ocarina of Time, which is a similar game, but it has such a contrasting tone with an oppressive atmosphere laced with impending doom that the world is gonna end and there's fuck all you can do about it. That's awesome, and I'd love to see more sequels like it, but Deus Ex wasn't able to repeat this trick when its difficult second game came around. I mean, yeah, it was different, but a little too different, and slightly more boring than its incredibly interesting and groundbreaking first game. Sorry, too far in the other direction, try again later. Deus Ex Invisible War often gets unfairly marked as a terrible video game because of how far below the par of the original it is, but honestly, it ain't all that bad. A little too generic for my taste and a clear step down, but some harmless fun on its own merits. Unfortunately, Invisible War fell into that all too familiar trap of asking people what game they wanted to play, which never usually goes well, but even less so in this case because the original Deus Ex was so groundbreaking because it tried things that no one ever knew they wanted to do. Regardless, Iron Storm took to focus testing concepts, and gradually over time they start to piece together a game based on the feedback they received, and hey, it's fine, but it's lacking a lot of creativity. Warren Spector, who worked wonders with the first game, had more of a supervising role with Invisible War, and deeply regrets taking any of the feedback on board. Considering where the franchise was, and is right now, I feel like a lot of its identity was lost along the way, since I don't remember the first game having a boss in it that punches out reminders that if you're enjoying this video and want to see more, make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications of every new video. Obviously, it was too much to ask for a game that could go toe-to-toe with Deus Ex, but I still think Iron Storm went about its sequel in all the wrong ways. That being said, I'm not sure what a Majora's Mask equivalent would look like for a game with as much subtext as Deus Ex. Hot damn, it'd be fascinating to play though. It'd rival Metal Gear for pretension. Corporate meddling is enough to drive any creator mad. I couldn't imagine it, because that would be like YouTube dictating what my videos are about, or demanding that I talk about one thing in particular, because when publishers become too set in their ways and go up against a developer who is equally stubborn and unbending, it doesn't usually end well. I mean, where do you want me to start? We've got Lair, that had motion controls bolted onto it against the wishes of the developers. Fuse was made a lot more serious and boring by EA's obsession with homogenizing the industry, and let's not even get into Metal Gear Solid 5. However, despite some anger aimed at the people at the top, most of these games aren't outwardly hated by the individuals who worked on them, leading to me looking in the direction of the usually buoyant Suda51 and his uncomfortable experience working with Electronic Arts on Shadow of the Damned. I could have easily talked about this game when I made that video about games that EA have ruined a few weeks ago, and that should probably tell you a lot about how this game was handled and why Suda51 isn't likely to jump at the chance to work with EA again. There aren't too many who would these days. EA have got this idea in their heads that they know the one and only way of making video games and ensuring that it makes them lots of money, but there are so many different types of popular games out there that there can't be a surefire way of being popular in the games industry. Besides, Shadow of the Damned didn't do very well, even with EA's meddling, so maybe they don't know what's best after all. Those involved in making Shadow of the Damned can point fingers all they like, but we're here because Suda51 washed his hands with this game a long time ago. In partnering with fellow Japanese designer Shinji Mikami from Resident Evil and Dino Crisis fame, having teamed up for Killer 7 years earlier, the aim was to combine each of their styles into one flashy survival horror game that would be unique enough to carry its own sales figures. Unfortunately, as soon as they went to EA with their idea, the response was one of "sounds great, but here's all the changes we want to make because we want every game to be similar to something else, and quite a lot safer than this weird game you've got." The story goes that Shadow of the Damned went through 5 different versions before they landed at something that EA liked, and Suda and Mikami reluctantly agreed, with EA specifically having issues with the complexity of the game's story, citing that if you can't tell your story in the length of an elevator ride, Hollywood won't use it, which would be really helpful if Shadow of the Damned was a feature-length film, but quick newsflash, it kinda isn't. Suda and Mikami's game underwent so many enforced changes that Mikami later said that Goichi Suda was left heartbroken by the whole experience, which, reading between the lines a bit, doesn't sound like he enjoys this game all that much. It's not a terrible game by any means, but it suffers a lot from feeling like a lot of other games, and considering what kind of game these two wanted to make, I can't help but feel disappointed with that. What might have been if EA hadn't ruined this game. Not the first time, and sadly not likely to be the last. One day we'll see the warning signs. I've often wondered what kind of game I'd make if I ever had enough free time to do that, but now I'm just wondering if I'd be happy with the end result. You know, if you're making a game on your own, at least you're not fucking around with a publisher all the time, but maybe you'll get stuck in your head too much and second guess every decision, and ultimately nothing ever gets done. Let's just pretend that's never happened, shall we? Which just makes the work of solo developers all the more impressive. A problem shared is a problem halved, and not having anyone else in your dev team to consult with on your game has to be tricky, so you really do have to hand it to the creators of games like Braid, Cave Story, Stardew Valley, a whole host of incredible indie games that really don't show any signs of being made by just one person. Fez is another game made by one person that doesn't have any notable signs that one guy put all this together, and yet history will remember this game and its creator Phil Fish for very different reasons. What might have been if Twitter didn't exist? Something I wonder every day. Fez had a ton of promise as an exciting new indie IP when it first came out, with its rotational platforming and charming art style, and it looked like Phil Fish would be writing his name in the Indie Game Hall of Fame alongside Edmund McMillan and Jonathan Blow, his Indie Game The Movie co-stars. By the time that Fez came out though, after numerous delays and an unhealthy amount of public exposure throughout its troubled development that evidently took its toll on Fish's attitude towards game development, you can feel the burnout start to rise up, and especially around the time that he got into a fight with Microsoft for charging so much for patching Fez's many glitches. It all came to a head one afternoon on Twitter, where Phil Fish went on a tirade about many different things, but mostly game trailers' Marcus Beer, who he'd had arguments with in the past, and suddenly, poof! No more Phil Fish, and no more Fez 2, something that Fish has described as the end of a long bloody campaign. Yeah, that sounds like someone who had fun making Fez and is perfectly content with the state the game is in now that he stopped supporting it, and now he's left the games industry, never to be seen again. Maybe he's returned to the sea. You never can predict what kind of game people are going to fall in love with. I didn't expect a colourful Takeshi's Castle Battle Royale game to be what everyone's playing right now, and yet Fall Guys has become very popular in a short space of time and has drawn more attention than a host of other more expensive video games. The internet loves a simple indie game when we haven't got anything else to do, and while Fall Guys' meteoric rise was a bit sudden, you'd need a whole new metric by which to measure the success of Flappy Bird. Yeah, bet you haven't heard that name for a while. I bet it brings back memories of early 2014 YouTube, where this thing was absolutely everywhere and every big name was playing it. I can sort of see why, because navigating these pipes is janky enough so that you die often enough, but being good at Flappy Bird is so tantalizingly close that you keep trying in the hope that everything clicks together at some point. At the height of its popularity, creator Nguyen? Is that right?
When?
Do you just pronounce it when? Since when? Oh shit. Creator Dong Nguyen told The Verge that the game was earning him $50,000 a day from the in-game advertising, so it's safe to say that Flappy Bird was a roaring success. A little too successful for its own good though. The decision to take Flappy Bird down from both the Apple and Google app stores is almost as famous as the game's brief stint as the most popular game in the land. It was strange going from a time when everyone was playing the game to it disappearing off the face of the earth, because Dong Nguyen wasn't enjoying his newfound fame and success. At the time, it was thought that he had run into legal issues since those pipes sure do look a lot like Mario pipes, but Dong later revealed in an interview that he was losing sleep over Flappy Bird and felt guilty that so many people had become addicted to his creation. He wasn't enticed about making so much money from the game and never intended for Flappy Bird to have any kind of popularity, let alone be a phenomenon on this kind of scale. I don't think anyone was dangerously addicted to Flappy Bird, but I find it fascinating that Dong had such an adverse reaction to his game. Not so much for its content, but for what it brought out of people. As if he had to stamp it out before it got out of hand, like he's unearthed some long-forgotten power that mankind isn't ready for. Or it's just a game about a bird and some pipes. I mean, I haven't missed playing it. This is RabbidLuigi, and with Flappy Bird being the most modern game in this video, it represents the dangers of digital media and the power that creators have over their video games. Obviously, if Dong Nguyen wanted to take his video game down, he has every right to do so, but that would have been a lot harder if it existed in a physical form, like a cartridge or a disc. There's an argument to be made about the preservation of digital media, but, you know, at least we have some form of Flappy Bird to hold on to in the form of the many YouTube videos that came out when it was still active. You know, now with 100% more obnoxious screaming. So, what topic would you like to see me cover next?